So you want to know how to actually describe a line graph image when you come across one in the PTE speaking exam. Well, today I'm going to be showing you how you can do just that very effectively by using 4 sentences. What is going on, everyone? My name is Josh and this is Lenorific 99, and today we will be discussing how to describe the line graph. Now I'll share with you some 5 tips that would actually help you to prepare for this exam. I will also go over my template strategy to solve any question, and then we would solve a simple line graph as well as a complicated one. But before we go over all that, remember to subscribe to my channel and ding that bell for notification. Also give me a thumbs up and I would massively appreciate that. Remember, if you've got questions for me, leave it in the comment section below. Now that that's all done with, let's get on with the tutorial. All right, getting straight into the tips. So my first tip today is do not panic. Now I know this is a cliche and a lot of tutors must have said this, but it is the truth. Do not panic. The reason why I say this is that when you come across a complicated line graph, it only means that you have more things to pick from to talk about. So just look for the things that stand out on the line graph and talk about those things. Remember, according to the score guide, you don't have to describe every single thing. You only need to link the elements. So pick as many points as you can, but basically you only just need 2 to 3 points. And I'll show you that when I am actually going over the strategies. So remember, do not panic. My second tip today would be do not focus on specifics. Now, a lot of students want to look at the specifics, e.g. on a line graph, you have the x-axis and the y-axis. The x-axis consists of, the nouns. So it could be dates, it could be places, it could be, the name of animals or plants or whatever. On the y-axis, you've got figures and values. And so many students would want to correlate the trend, which is the line on the line graph, with the y-axis to the last decimal or to the last fraction. You do not have to do this because your accuracy is not being marked. What is being marked exactly is the English that you are using. So try as much as possible to give a good speech or make good sentences as well. So that's my second tip. Do not focus on specifics. My tip number 3 is this. Whenever you have too many information on an image, especially the line graph, try to group the information. As long as you can group the information, this would help you finish on time before the 40 seconds mark that you have been given. So when you see so many things on an image, instead of talking about how this thing fluctuated in 1998 to 10%, and then in 1999 it decreased, and then it decreased over to. While you're doing that, first things first, because you're trying to be specific and also because you're not grouping, you have too many things to talk about, you are not going to finish before 40 seconds and that will throw you off. Second of all, it will cause you to do the same thing that I was doing just now, which is stutter, which is stammering. And every time you're stammering, you are repeating words. And if you're repeating words, the computer is going to score you low for your grammar, which is for your content. So try as much as possible, group them, generalize, and put them into sections. And then, just talk about those little points that you have given. That leads me to the 4th tip. So the 4th tip today would be jot in shorthands whatever points that you want to make. So usually when you are writing this exam, you are given 25 seconds to prepare. Now, I know that in my previous video, I did say it was 7 seconds. My mistake. It's been years since I wrote this exam. But yes, it is 25 seconds. And that is plenty of time for you to actually jot down 2 to 3 points with shorthand. What do I mean by shorthand? For those of you that don't understand, just, shorten the word that you are writing. For instance, the word development. I used to write it, I would usually write it as DEV''T, telling me that it is development. If it is developed, I would have used DEV''D to say that it is developed. you know, and so on and so forth. Communication, I use the same thing. I just write COM and then apostrophe TN, telling me that it is communication. And then if it is communicate, I just write COM apostrophe TE. Now, I'm not here to teach you how to shorthand. Use your own method. I just use that to tell you as an example of how I used to write in shorthand. So just write those pointers in shorthand, and then when you're ready to speak, just go ahead and speak. Remember, if you practice this long enough, you will get, you know, it will become second nature to you, and you'll be able to do it easily in the examination. Now, my last tip for today would be to record yourself. I always mention this in every tip that I give. Always record yourself, because this is the way that you can assess yourself. Try and do this as many times as possible, especially if you do not have a tutor that can assess you. You have to do this for yourself, or get a friend as well that can help check, you know, your practice work to see if you're improving or not, because that would actually tell you how good you are and how much you have improved from when you started practicing. That's it for the tips. We move over to the strategies. So for my strategy, I built a template for answering the describe image questions. So my template is in a format of 1-to-1 system. Now for the describe image, there are 3 sections and 3 phases for the description. And this is why I divided it into 3 phases. That's 1, introduction, 2, body sentences, and 1, conclusion. So those 3 phases are your introduction, your explanation phase, or your example phase, which are the points that you want to pick out from your image, and then the conclusion phase. Okay, so now let's have a look at the template, and then we can use that template to actually answer some questions. So take a look. All right, now the template is right there on your board. As you can see, I have aligned them from the introduction to the point making sentences and the conclusion. So let's just answer some questions using this template. Now you can see in front of you a typical line graph image. It has its y-axis and it has its x-axis. Now I'm not going to focus much on the y-axis at all when I am making, describing this. As you can see, it's talking about the US sugar intake versus obesity prevalence from the year 1980 to the year 2013. So I am just simply going to focus on the x-axis, and what's on the x-axis? It's dates. So I'm basically going to focus on the dates that I am seeing on the x-axis, and I will utilize that x-axis as part of my introduction. Fortunately for this particular image, they've already included it into the topic, so I'm going to include that topic to my introduction. Okay, so let's describe this image. This line graph shows the US sugar intake versus obesity prevalence from the year 1980 to the year 2013. From the image, it can be seen that obesity has been on the rise. It can also be seen that up until the year 2000, sugar intake has been on the increase, but then from that point onwards started to decrease. Lastly, one can conclude that obesity is going to constantly increase regardless of sugar reduction intakes. Now that is the way I would define it, off the top of my head, and if I'm inside the examination hall. Now the questions that I would ask myself are, am I talking about this image? Yes. What have I done to show the AI that I am actually speaking about this image? I have mentioned sugar intake, obesity prevalence, and I have mentioned the year. So these are keywords that I've included into my statements to show the PTE AI that I am actually speaking about this image. So let's move on to the next image. Okay, so for this image, we have more complicated lines on it. Now, like I said before, when I actually Googled how a particular website that PTE endorsed described this image, they spoke for more than a minute. So that's not very good, because they were trying to describe every single thing on the image itself. So I'm going to give a description from my own perspective, and I would actually focus on those key enabling skills while I am defining this. So, okay, describing now. This line graph shows the unemployment rates by age and qualification from the year 1992 to the year 2010. From the image, it can be seen that the younger age group of 16 and 17 are having the highest rate of unemployment. It can also be seen that the older ones from the age group of 21 to 24, both with degrees and no degrees, have a fairly low unemployment rate. Lastly, one can conclude that the unemployment system here favors the older groups than the younger ones. And so that is how I would define it. And I could actually describe it in different other ways, but I'm trying to focus on the grammar that I am using to make sure that my grammar is correct and I'm using enough vocabularies, and I'm also focusing on what my oral fluency and pronunciation. Okay guys, so basically that is how I would simply describe any image without putting too much force or too much stress on it, you know. So you do not have to describe it to perfection. Just try and make sure that your grammar is as correct as possible if you want to score the maximum 15 points for each questions in this aspect. Okay everyone, that's all I have for you for today. In my next video, I'll be talking about the bar graphs, so watch out for that. Anyways, until the next time that I catch you guys, remember to keep learning, stay blessed, and be terrific.